Good morning. I'm Cortez Lawrence. I work here at the National Emergency Training Center for the U.S. Fire Administration. I've been here since 2002. In fact, I've been here since the day before 9/11. Prior to that, I worked for the city of Auburn, Alabama, where I was Deputy Director of Public Safety. And before that, I had many jobs, including starting my public safety career in the fire service in Hall County, Georgia, and then later on as fire chief in LaGrange, Georgia. It was back in that time that we actually started having discussion and developed the smoke diver program. Before I get into that specific history, let me mention that behind this closed curtain in my office window here are a couple of things that are pretty important and germane to the program. One is the National Fallen Firefighter Memorial, the circle of names of those who've been lost in the line of duty going back a couple of decades now. Every year we put somewhere around 100 names on that monument for that year's loss in the line of duty. I don't think I need to be explicit or too detailed to show a relationship between what you're doing in your smoke diver training and the names on the monument. Also behind me is the We Will Never Forget monument, the statutory replication of that famous photograph out of the World Trade Center with the FDNY firefighters raising the American flag in the debris field. That too has a direct line with what you are prepared to do or doing in terms of your smoke diver training, being the very best you can be in our profession in terms of operational readiness and capabilities. I have some specific questions that I was asked to address, so I'm going to do that and hopefully cover some of the history and the ideas behind the foundation of the Georgia Smoke Divers program. In 1977, I went down to Florida to attend the Florida Smoke Diver program, and I got to tell you, I wasn't really prepared for what I walked in the door for. To make it understandable in terms that are pretty easily grasped, I walked in wearing a fire department uniform, and there were 20 or 25 young men around me all wearing gym clothes and tennis shoes, and I knew I was in trouble immediately. And that set the tone for the week. But at the end of the week, I graduated, and I had learned a lot, and I was actually inspired to think that this training was intense enough to impart important skills to bring back to Georgia. Also was looking for fires to smoke dive in. I was looking for more opportunities to engage in structural firefighting, and that was there's a lot of funny stories that I could tell with that, but that's not appropriate now. I went back to Georgia, and about the same time I came back, I was offered a fire chief's job down in LaGrange, which I accepted. And I entered discussions with Harold Thompson, who was the director of the State Fire Academy at the time, who was very supportive about us starting a Georgia program. So he gave me the green light, and I assembled a team of probably 6 or 8 folks, all of whom had been through the Florida program. There were, and I certainly won't remember the names, all of them, some folks from LaGrange who had gone after I got to be fire chief there, Nish Willis and Gene Nelson. Couple of folks from Columbus, Georgia. And anyways, I'm not going to remember all the names, so probably shouldn't try to remember or mention any of them. So in 1977, we put together our first class. Harold and the Fire Academy advertised it, and it came off. Our completion rate was pretty low, and that therein lies one of the problems with the courses. But our concept, and Harold backed this up, was it was performance-based. People had to pass all the elements of the class. There were no social promotions here. There was plenty of performance evaluations, and the term that's used now in the military, the Marine Corps uses that at 29 Palms for Marine and Special Ops folks deploying to Southwest Asia and the battles there, is hyper-realistic training. We wanted to put stress on individuals, we wanted to put them in realistic situations that would provide them an opportunity to stretch their capabilities and improve their ability to be interior firefighters. Some of the individuals outside the instructors who have been involved with the program is without Harold Thompson's support as the Fire Academy director, we never would have gotten it off the ground. He detailed Fred Parker, who was instructional specialist for the Academy, and he was sort of our link and person we went to for all our support. Larry Williams, after he left Hall County as a fire chief, also provided that same link when Fred left. And then later on, Lynn Pardue was our program coordinator for smoke divers. Over the years after Harold left, the program has waxed and waned. Most recently, David Wall has ascended to the leadership of the Georgia Fire Academy and has been supportive of the program, and we appreciate that. I was asked about why we do certain things in the program, and some of it is happenstance, some of it's intended, but let me talk about a few things. When we first started the program, we were at the Georgia Fire Academy in Marietta, Georgia, and we didn't have any logistics trained to support the program in terms of moving people. So on our first day, when we did the physical fitness exam or test, we would go over to the Marietta, or actually I think it was the Cobb County recreation area where they had a running track, and we would do the physical exams there, the PT exams. And then to get back to the academy, which was probably 3 or 4 miles away, we didn't have buses or vans. We simply jogged back. So it had nothing to do with additional performance testing. It had to do with getting folks in a large group back to the academy together in a reasonable amount of time. Now that's been institutionalized as part of the intended training, and that's fine, but it actually grew out of happenstance. The 5 evolutions that we do came directly from Florida, simply a performance and endurance benchmark somewhere during the class to test the physical endurance and capability of the student and their ability to work under pressure in a limited resource environment. And even that's changed. At one point where we were teaching inappropriately in retrospect, teaching people how to survive without breathing compressed air, sometimes jacket breathing or hose breathing and so forth. We would encourage people to extend their searches and their evolutions through techniques we wouldn't be using today. The nuts and bolt drill was an evolution more complex than that was used in Florida at the time. The idea was pulled together by several people and has been improved and built upon. As advice to future smoke daddies, as the term is, I would certainly urge you to always think about safety. There's absolutely no reason for a student or instructor or anyone in the vicinity of a class to be injured either in a vehicle or traffic accident, in an evolution, or in just the day-to-day activities going around in PT and walking to and from activities and so forth. There's absolutely no place for horseplay on the training field or practical jokes or those kind of things. So the use of ICS has evolved, and that's certainly a good way to manage the training scenarios, and I certainly urge that be continued. I would urge you to remember it's about performance. It's not about being pretty. It's not about saying the right words. It's about doing the right thing in the appropriate manner at the right time successfully. And those that can do that pass, and those that can't hopefully get another chance to do it. But at the end of the day, if they can't do it, they need to be given another opportunity to succeed sometime else. But it's about successful performance. It's about being thoughtful. It's not just about jumping into the midst of the fight without thinking about what you're going to do. Have a plan, not only a plan, but a plan B and hopefully a plan C. Have the resources and the physical prowess and the ability to bring it all together and execute the plan. I would suggest that the leaders of the smoke diver program constantly reevaluate the goals. It will always be about individual performance, but the subsets of that individual performance need to evolve. And that's the last word I'm going to use for leadership to be mindful of, and that is it's an evolution. It's a program that I could give you a photo shot of 1977, 78, and 79 when I was most closely engaged as leading the program personally. But it has to evolve. Our technology's evolved, the students have evolved. They're far fitter and far more energetic and far smarter than the group that I was in when I went through smoke divers. And so we have to find ways to meaningfully challenge them and develop skills in them that they can take back to their agencies and use on the fire ground as well as teach their colleagues. There are things that threaten the program. The failure rate is a threat. The Fire Academy had never dealt with something less than 60% graduation rate. And the fire chiefs in the state, the fire marshals, and others raise that question regularly to Mr. Thompson early on in the game, and threatened the continuation of the program, and we actually saw some results of that later on. The cost of the program is high. We work with a lot of volunteers. Our instructor to student ratio is horrendous in terms of didactic concepts. So we need to constantly make sure that we're getting as much efficacy as possible for the resources that we engage for the program. One threat to the program are the tales that come from unsuccessful students. They go back to their department. All of us would be disheartened. Some of us would be demoralized, and many people would be looking for excuses to explain our failure. In fact, there are no failures in this program. Every student, even if they don't make it past the first day in the PT test, learns something. They learn about their limits, they learn about their capabilities, they learn to push themselves, as well as those skills that we specifically address in the training. But some students go back and say it was too hard, it was unrealistic, I was exposed to dangers, without any real concept of the overwatch we provide, the safety issues, etc. So unsuccessful students are a threat to the program. But now here's a surprise, a bigger threat are the successful students. They go back and make it seem more than it was. Everybody tells war stories. And I would encourage successful students to base their war stories on what really happened, what really went on. And before they exaggerate that, maybe talk with the instructors and find out what was going on behind the scenes to ensure that I was safe. What was going on to make sure that when I needed something it was available. How was I accounted for all the time? Those kind of things. I had seen the program as probably being the future of leadership in the American Fire Service, certainly the Fire Service in Georgia as graduates rose to the top. But in fact, the fire profession has changed significantly. And we've become not only fire, but EMS and hazardous materials and emergency management focused. And fire operations suppression has become less the centerpiece and more of a co-ancillary piece or a co-center piece with these other activities. And so just being good at suppression is not going to create the leaders of the fire service. What it does do, though, is create people who are very competent in fire suppression operations at the company and individual level. And what I would encourage these folks to do then is grow in these other areas I've mentioned as well, so that in fact we do become the leaders of the fire service. And then I would say the future of the program also depends largely on your ambassadorship to the rest of the fire service. Tell the smoke diver story. Tell folks how it can help them individually and help their agency, and be a salesperson. Folks, this is a great program. It has a lot of great outcomes. There are people who came out of the program and had an opportunity to immediately make a rescue. One of the greatest stories is the fellow out of Milledgeville, Georgia, who finished the program and 2 weeks later comes across a car submerged in a stream, and the local volunteer fire department standing by on the bridge waiting for the divers to come and pull what they suppose were bodies out. This fellow, based on the training that we had done, put on an SCBA, would not have complied with any safety standards we use these days, got put on the SCBA, went in, and as I understand it, rescued occupants out of the car. It's a great story. Almost daily, when I was actively engaged with smoke divers in the state, we heard stories about folks who use their training to make a great attack, or self-rescue, or make a rescue for occupants or their brother and sister firefighters. So there are many, many success stories out there. The big one, though, is the buildup of confidence, the understanding of your personal abilities and to some extent your limits, and the ability to push yourself without ever giving up. I thank you for this opportunity to talk about the program, a little bit about the history. I would urge you to practice what we teach, and I would also urge you never forget 9/11. Thank you.